Hello and welcome to the Corgi Town USA podcast. I'm Candy Kemp and this is Chuckles in my lap. He is the spokescorg of Corgi Town USA and the president of the Corgi Committee. With me is always
I'm Catherine Cohen,
executive producer of the podcast.
Corg
Mom.
Corg Mom, cattle dog mom,
Mm-hmm.
cat mom,
cat mom,
chicken mom,
cat the cat mom,
cat
the cat and chicken mom.
Cat the cat and chicken mom. Yep.
So we have Digby, he's chair, and then Wiggins, our honorary corgi.
He is.
Yeah. So we're going to talk today about carts.
We are.
Yeah. So in a few weeks ago, we had Tauni Beckmann on from Shade Out DM.
And DM is?
Degenerative myelopathy.
It is horrible.
Yeah. Canine ALS.
Yes. And I just learned about it through this podcast, actually, through working with you on the podcast.
We're doing our job.
And it's just it's horrible, it's terrible, it's sad.
Yeah.
I know that they do some testing for it.
That's the only way to prevent it.
That's the only
testing before breeding.
Before breeding. Yeah. Like, don't breed and then test and go, oops.
Yeah.
So make sure that the breeders that you're maybe using are testing.
Yes, that's a very important test is the DM test. And we're finding out there are some arguments that we get against it, but I just personally have not been convinced. I think that they should test for it no matter what, because yes, maybe all of the research is not out. However, we do know for sure that we can test to see if they're going to have carrier to carrier, and we can avoid a litter being affected.
Yes.
Even if there's a percentage they don't get it, it's not worth it. It's not worth the risk. So we ask, please, if you decide to get a puppy from a breeder, please make sure they do DM testing. But
absolutely.
We're going to talk about the other program that Tauni from DM, Shade Out DM has, and that's Casey's Kruisers. So her corgi Casey had DM many years ago. They looked for the diagnosis and trying to figure out what was going on, and it wasn't well known at that time.
No, and it's a heartbreaking story. So please look for it in our past episodes.
Yes.
And have a box of tissues. It is a heartbreaking story.
We have a couple. We also brought on Miriam Valère.
Right.
She wrote Another New Normal. She's had a couple of DM corgis, I believe.
Yes.
But she did write a book about one. Yeah. So, but we're going to talk about carts today, and we're going to talk about the cart program and how important it is to have carts. So should we bring
absolutely?
On our
I think we should bring on our guest.
Let's bring on Tauni. Tauni, welcome back.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing today?
Great. How are you?
We're good. We're good. We're looking forward to all this delicious knowledge you're going to drop on us today about carts.
Yeah. It's hot. And speaking of DM, that is something that dogs with DM cannot regulate their own body temperature. So the heat really takes an extra toll on them.
I did not know that. You educated me already.
Okay.
But we do carts for all different things, not just DM.
Yeah. Right. So we're going to talk. I did bring in studio here. So my first corgi, Lilo, he lived to 15. Thankfully, he was not affected by DM, but he started to have some arthritis. So this particular cart here is actually my family's cart. My aunt purchased this because her corgi, her first corgi, we think probably had DM. She had lost control of her back legs, but this was her cart. And so when Lilo started having really bad arthritis, I brought this back with me, and he used it a couple of times. It kind of helped him where he wasn't having to get up and move around if we were walking around outside. Right. And he did pretty well in it. But can you tell us about this cart? Because you're pretty familiar with this.
Yeah,
this is a different kind of cart.
That looks like a canine cart, which is a very good cart. They're all really good carts. It really depends on the pup. It's kind of like fitting a pair of jeans. Some cuts fit dogs differently than other pups. I'm a horse trainer, so it's very important to fit the right size saddle on a horse, or they cause soreness in certain areas. And the dogs are really good about telling us if a cart is too heavy or improperly fit. They won't go, they won't walk. But one thing I'd like to add is it's very important that you get your vet's advice as far as putting them into a cart, because if in fact it is a disc injury instead, you could injure them more by not having them, so it's really important that people do this at the advice of their vet. And through Casey's Cruisers, we do have an application process, and all that is looking that your vet has looked over everything. Some vets aren't not even familiar with DM, and we're hearing over and over like it's this and this and this and this, and all the signs are kind of matching up as DM. But we want to make sure that it's with your vet's consent that we send you a cart, because and that's where we'll take the time and talk with the vet and say, are you familiar with DM, that kind of thing. And a lot of times they're not. So, but a lot of times they are. And they say, oh, absolutely, we want to make sure that this dog gets a cart, because it gives them freedom.
Right. So asking questions is very important. And I'm going to say, dear listener, dear viewer, those who are listening and not viewing, we have brought in my cart here, and I'll just give a brief description. It's got some straps to affix to the front part of their body, the front part of their body. And then it has loops that are, what would you call those? Shaped. They're shaped to go around those back stumpers, those back legs, and kind of stabilize.
So that's called the saddle, where they sit.
Saddle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or leg rings. Yeah.
Okay, leg rings. That's a good description.
Yeah,
leg rings.
yeah.
If you're trying to describe it to someone listening,
Yes.
their leg ring.
Right.
So that's the cart we have, and so now we know what kind that is. So let's talk about, and we do want to go into the applications and things like that. But first, Tauni, will you please tell us? I believe at one point you had mentioned when you were trying to make Casey more comfortable that you started making your own.
Well, at the time, I had never heard of degenerative myelopathy, and the 5 vets and 3 chiropractors that I went to, none of them had either. And so, please know, I'm never knocking any vets. It's all a learning process for all of us. So, at the time, I was being told, "Oh, it's just temporary. It's not. It's just a temporary moment, And but yeah, you could put her into a cart." And my husband, who's a wonderful Korg dad, he just went, "Oh my gosh, $700 for a cart? I can't do that, So long story short, I said, well, if it's just temporary, I can. And I worked with the chiropractor, and I'm kind of crafty, so I just started building it. And there's a lot of tutorials off of Facebook or what is it? The internet, like I don't know. There's like YouTube. That's what I'm trying to think of. And so there's a lot of tutorials and that. But honestly, for her, I didn't understand. All the carts I'd seen, they had the stirrups, and I thought you had to put her feet up. And at that time, she was still using her back legs, and I didn't want to put her feet up. So I just started. I built a cart that actually it didn't have the saddle. It actually had like a little sling for her to sit in, and just support her belly. She also had a tumor in her belly, so a lot of people think she was just fat, but it actually was a tumor. If you can see, it's kind of bulging over this side of her cart there. That's fluff and tumor. So anyway, but the vet kept saying it doesn't bother her, it doesn't bother me, and it bugged me more than anybody.
Sure.
But her cart didn't even rub on it. I mean, we fit it properly, So anyway, but yeah, I built the first one, and she took off in it and tore around and ended up breaking it. And I would fix it, and it got to a point where I couldn't fix it anymore. So I tried to build her another cart, and I just couldn't get the angles right. I couldn't get it just right. And her body had developed, the disease had developed more. So her body had changed some. So I couldn't get it right. And so at that time, Bobby with Corgis on Wheels loaned me a cart, which was really nice. I'd never heard of them, and they're amazing. Bobby's incredible, and I still work very closely with her, even though this program is not in competition with Corgis on Wheels at all. I think Bobby is amazing. I learned my information from Bobby, and she's very, very supportive of everything. And I still go to her with questions about things. And in my eyes, she's the expert.
Yeah.
So, but they do specialize only in Corgis. And so that's when, because I have more than just a Corgi, that's when we thought it was important to offer something for all breeds. And so that's when we started doing the program, Casey's Cruisers. Bandits, I had borrowed the rear wheel cart for Casey from Bobby with Corgis on Wheels. And when the disease was progressing up to her front, like you'll notice in the picture, that was a quad cart. And Bandits all helped me purchase that quad cart for her, which is a $750 cart. So, yeah. And so we cleaned up the cart we had borrowed from Corgi Aid as best we could, cleaned it up and sent it back to Bobby to be used for the next pup. And it's a bittersweet thing to send carts back. But thankfully, in my position at the time, it was for a good reason in that she got another cart. So anyway.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you for that. So as we're talking about this, for anyone who is facing that their Corgi needs a cart, be it for DM or injury or what have you, what would you say? Yeah. What would you say? How do you introduce the cart to your Corgi, and when do you decide to do that? What would be your advice there?
So that's a really good question. It depends on the pup. So typically we say it's helpful to introduce it while they're still standing, while they're still able to get around on their own. But a lot of dogs, I'm going to say dogs in general because it's not just limited to Corgis, are not ready for the cart yet. They're still getting around just fine, and they don't think they need it. And some of them, the cart, and they don't need it. Don't make them do it if they don't want to do it, you know? Yeah. But it is important for them to start, just get it out of the box, leave it in the middle of the living room, let everybody get used to having it around. That's the main thing. You can also, some of the carts, like yours doesn't have a harness. It's got the strap that goes around their body. But some of them have a harness, and the pups are not used to wearing things. So put the harness on, let them just wear the harness around, let them get used to wearing things. And then it's not as big of a change for them. But once they're down, most of them are grateful to have the wheels. It's just a matter of time when they're ready. Very rarely do we have a pup that doesn't take to them. And occasionally, probably since we've been doing this, maybe 5 dogs have not taken to them. That's it. They all really take to them. And I think, some of it's all in the presentation. And that's, me being a horse trainer again. If I tell a horse, get in the ring, it's going to be horrible for you, get in the horse trailer, they're not going to go, right? But if I go in and say, hey, if you want to go for a trail ride, you got to get on the trailer, then they go, oh, well, and they find out, they go, and it's a wonderful thing. They had a really good time. They walk right into the horse box every single time, so it's a lot of it is the presentation and the reward. But Corgis are very,
incentive and positive reinforcement.
Right.
Yeah, snacks.
Snacks are good.
Snacks are always good.
Yeah.
I like snacks.
Corgis are very much like horses in that they can be stubborn.
No way.
No, I'm shocked.
It's funny because I was helping a lady with a lab, and he was just happy about everything. And I was like, wait, that it really is a breed difference sometimes, but whereas Casey, and it's not a negative thing, it just means you have to work a little harder.
Yes. Yeah. We
are
painfully aware.
Yes. But Casey
so.
was glad. But back to when you should do it. If you do it while they're still standing, they're still able to hold themselves, it's a lot easier on you because you can get accurate measurements with them holding themselves up. It's difficult to get the measurements when they're laying down and not holding themselves up. I did it a lot of times, and it's very difficult to do as a one-person job. So it's easier when they're still up.
This cart that's in the studio with me, that was Kira's. That was my aunt's dog that used it. Lilo and Kira were, I would say, similar in size, but Lilo was definitely different dimensions. He was a big corgi. He was probably about 38 pounds, but he wasn't fat. He was just long. He was we used to say he was substantial. And he was such a roll with it dude. He was so back, like just so laid back. And so when I brought the cart out, he was kind of like, we're doing this, all right, cool. Like he was easy. But I think that's a very important question, because it can scare them. Like Chuckles, which Chuckles thankfully has been tested, he's not supposed to be affected, but Chuckles doesn't like anything over his head. So even something like a piece of paper, you can put a piece of paper in front of him, it's no big deal. But if you hold it over his head, he starts running and cowering. Ever since he was a puppy, I don't know what his deal is. He just is afraid of things over his head.
And it's important to respect that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so just dogs and their quirks, and corgis definitely have them. But even bringing the cart into the studio here, Chucky was like, "What are you doing? There's something over my head if I lower it." And I'm
very aware.
Yeah. But just those kinds of things are things to take into account.
And let me remind our dear listeners that Chuckles has been your child since birth. You gave birth to him, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I carried him for 9 months.
You carried him for 9. No, but so if anyone is listening to the show thinking, oh, well, he's a rescue and there was a traumatic incident, there wasn't.
No, we don't know why he's afraid of things.
He just is. So
it's just a quirk.
It's a quirk, just like I'm terrified of heights. Just like some people are afraid of water. It just is. I mean, there's no reason for me to be, but I am. So I push myself and I go to the edge of the Grand Canyon.
Oh gosh.
That's what I do. That's what you guys do.
Well, so there you go. Casey was afraid of cabinets closing.
Really?
Yeah, we identified later it sounded like thunder to her or something. But when she was a puppy, we went to school and they closed the cabinet and she freaked out, and they kept doing it, every time they get out treats or whatever. And so we ended up just not going to school.
My goodness. My first girl corgi before Booger had Zelda, and Zelda did not like gum. If you had chewing gum in your mouth, she would cower and run away and go into the other room.
I think this is fodder for a whole show.
It is. The corgis and their quirks. The quirky corgis. So before we get too far off track.
That's right.
Let's talk more about these carts and potty breaks. And so for Lilo's, he couldn't really do number 2 in this because they kind of have to like scrunch up, at least not in the cart that's here. But he could number 1, no problem, because he would just roll out and go and it was fine. So how did the potty breaks work with these carts?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of different thoughts on that. Basically, I get people saying, oh, my dog is incontinent. And a lot of times they're not necessarily incontinent. We always suggest to get them checked for a UTI, because if they're having accidents, the majority of the time, I'd say probably about 85-90% of the time of people we talk to, we tell them go get checked for a UTI, and they do, and it is a UTI. So once it's treated, it's fixed, no problem. The cart is nice because as long as you have everything aligned under there, they can go just fine with tinkle, whatever. I mean, the no problem at all. We used to call it a tinkle trail. But they still, like Casey didn't have use of her back legs, but she could still, like in the earlier stages when she was in her cart, she'd be going along and then she'd pick up her feet while she wheeled and tinkled along the way.
Oh my God.
But otherwise, tinkling is just fine. And if you don't align the little girl parts, it just gets all over the cart and you got to clean it, But as far as number 2 goes, they do eventually start to go number 2 also. It is a lot of the reason I'm tripping over my thoughts here is because it's very important. Casey's chiropractor told us that it's important to give handicapped dogs and I'm not giving advice. I'm just passing along the advice that I use that worked because I'm not a vet. But to give them a little scoop of pumpkin, canned pumpkin in their morning and dinner, in their food when they get it, and a couple, like 4 or 5 little green beans. that kept Casey totally, her stool was soft, so she didn't have to like bear down and try to push or anything like that, and it popped right on out. It wasn't loose or anything, so it's important to have their diet just the balance just right, so that you're getting and they're not having to work at it. And it's funny because it works so well. I just keep doing that with the dogs that I have now, and they have perfect poo-poos every single time. So but yeah, people will say that they're stool incontinent as well, and I don't think that's it. I think they do lose the ability to know that they're going. But for me, I was just grateful that she went, and I never had to do the expressions. I mean, I did have to, the last couple weeks is when I finally had to express her urine, her bladder. But I was really lucky. Casey did everything on her own. And it actually, for her, it got to a point where sometimes she wouldn't go at home. We have a back patio here, so I just have sod. I don't have like a big yard. And so she decided, no, I don't need to go. But we were on a very strict 4-hour schedule to try to keep her from getting the UTIs. And she, when she decided she wasn't going to go, I would put her in the car to go up the street to the park, and she'd go right when we get in the car. It was kind of like like, when you set a baby in their carriage on the dryer or washer or something, to soothe them. I think that's what it was, a lot like that a lot.
Yeah. This is so nice and relaxing.
Yeah.
And I could
start up the truck so the air conditioner would be on and let it cool down, and then I'd bring her out and put her in the truck, and whoop, there it goes. And I still took her to the park because that was like kind of her reward for going.
Yeah,
that's good.
Well, it's good to know though that is possible with the carts. But you bring up a good point. So a few weeks ago, we had talked to the Korg mom from 3 Crazy Corgis. She actually has 4 Crazy Corgis now, but she has Buttercup, who has an injury, a disc injury. So Buttercup isn't in a cart, and they do have to express Buttercup's bladder. But they also now have Boots, which is a puppy that came from a breeder that was they had a birth defect, and Boots has just little nubs up front, so not actual fully formed Corgi stumps. And she was working with the university to have a front cart built. So you had mentioned something about the quad carts, but they also have front carts. So can you give us sort of a brief description of the different kind of carts? We have quad cart, front cart, rear carts.
Yeah, you got it.
Oh, okay. I take good notes.
There's only a couple companies that do the front wheel carts. From what I understand, the other 2 companies or 3 companies are, they have plans. They're in development, but they're not happy with what they've come up with yet, so they don't have something available. It's real important to me to support all the cart companies, so I don't like to say names for anything.
Sure.
Just because they're all in it for the same reason, to help all the pups. So I love them all. I think they're all amazing. Some are more Cadillac-like, whereas others are more hardy. And like Casey was pretty rough on her carts, so I can tell you there are certain carts that wouldn't have lasted very long with her.
Turbo Corgi.
But then on the other hand, you get a Corgi that won't go because the cart's too heavy, so a lighter weight cart is better for them, So what did you just ask me? Oh, front wheel. Yeah.
different kind of carts. We have quad cart, rear cart, front cart, just a sort of a brief overview. Right. I mean, I think they're pretty self-explanatory, but your descriptions are pretty thorough. So I just kind of wanted to give our audience a little description.
Right. The cat's losing it over there. So,
I'm getting Corgi dust in my Corgi fur in my eye, and I'm like trying to
walk it off.
Yeah,
walk it
off. Yeah.
Well, before I forget, so the rear wheel carts are typically designed to support the rear end of the dog, and that is in a very regular case, unfortunately. always with degenerative myelopathy and a lot of disc injuries and things like that. Like the pup you're talking about, when it's a born congenital deformity, then yeah, a lot of times they do have the stumps on for their arms, and that needs to be custom. All of that needs to be custom. It's very important that it is fitting the dog. And like if it's an amputee, we have like a patch that goes on the cart to give them something to lean on, you know. So that there are amputee accessories for the carts. We've provided a few carts for amputee dogs, mostly a hind leg or something. But you know, a lot of them are really good at getting around without a cart, you know. So I think overall, if the vet feels the dog can go without a cart, he should go without a cart, because once he starts in a cart, he becomes dependent on you. You have to be totally committed to them. You have to, you know, they can't be in the cart. You put them in the morning and leave them all day. You can't do that. You've got to in and out, in and out, in and out all the time. And like typically we say try not to leave them in the cart for longer than an hour. Casey, I would try to stick to that rule, and I'd take her out of her cart and she'd be like scooting around, and then she'd go right back to her cart saying, I want. So
she said, I want turbo again. I have more turbo work to do.
Right.
She loved her cart. And I mean, it got to the point with her, I'd say, do you want to put on your wheels? And she'd scoot herself over to her wheels and start barking to put them on.
That's precious.
So like I said, I was very lucky with Casey. She was very determined, and she knew that was a tool for her, and it gave her a lot of freedom, and she loved that. Gave me a few heart attacks. And so going with so I knew that she was not doing as well in her rear wheel cart. We had made all the adjustments. You have to keep adjusting it as her body changes. Yep. But she's slowed down a lot. And if you notice, like in some of the pictures with her, her right front foot was dirty in a lot of the pictures. And that's because the disease was moving up her spine. And so her right front foot she was tripping a lot. And she got to where she didn't want to walk because she was tripping. And there was a couple times she tripped and bumped her chin, and then she would not walk. And so a few people online said, oh no, don't put her in a quad car. She's not ready for that. And I just had to listen to her. I mean, it was where she would only walk if I held the leash up for her and like gave her a little bit of attention to help tell her it's okay, I won't let you fall. And so at that point I was like, yeah, we need to get her a quad cart. So I put her in the quad cart, which is all four wheels. It's supporting the hind end and the front end. And a lot of the carts have a front end attachment you can add to your cart, but being that the one that I had borrowed, it didn't have a front wheel attachment with it. And I didn't know at the time that I could have purchased it. And so I learned a lot. Yeah. But when I got her the front wheel cart, I thought, okay, well, I put her in it. We went to the park because I don't have a big yard here. And I put her in it once I had made all the adjustments and stuff. And I was getting Spencer out of the car because he always had to wait until Casey was ready. And within a split second, I turned around and she was headed straight towards the ditch. I mean, at Mach 500 speed. I didn't think she could go that fast anymore. But yeah, wow. So a few heart attacks come with it.
I can imagine.
So with added mobility comes a different danger.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, she got to where she wouldn't walk. I mean, so clearly all she needed was those front wheels. And get on your running shoes, Mom, because this time we're going. You're
going jogging. So if the cart is needed because of an injury, instead of unfortunately DM or some other condition, do you find it hard to as the pup gets better, do you find it hard to move them off of the turbocharged cart and back onto, hey, you can walk now, you need to walk?
I'm glad you asked that, because I was told, oh, you don't want to put her in a cart because once they go in a cart, they never come out. Right. And that is absolutely not true. We've seen that happen lots of times where the dogs, you know, they have the cart like for a surgery or something, and they are also, you know, being directed by a great physical therapy place or something, you know. With experience, it's real important you get one with experience. But there's one I'm thinking of in particular, but we've had a few, and they graduate from the cart. You know, it's a matter of building the strength, and that is why now I know you don't have to put their feet up in the stirrups. You can let them leave them down, but it is important that if you don't have their feet in the stirrups and they do not have control of those back legs, you need to put boots or something on their feet to protect their little toenies so they don't get sores, because they will get sores if you don't.
Yeah, anytime you have dragging or not able to pick up and put down like a normal movement. So let's talk about, we will be wrapping up here shortly, but let's talk about, there are resources, and I know that you have Casey's Cruisers, and there are applications for carts. So if you're listening, dear listener, dear viewer, hopefully not, but if you find yourself in a situation where you might need a cart and you're afraid of the costs, or you're looking for some resources, the way you can do this is go to Bandit's Bandaid.org, and that's Bandits, Bandits, Bandaidinc.org, and look for the cart application on there. And we actually had Carol from Bandit's Bandaid on just recently, and they do amazing work. So that's a good website if you can meander over there to make a donation or see how you can help some of these wonderful animals that they're helping. But if someone, I guess how we'll wrap this up is to say, Tauni, if you can please tell our audience where would you tell someone to start? Obviously, they can go here for the application, but if someone is like you were at one time facing, oh my gosh, I need a cart for my dog, where would you tell them to start?
So, Bandits, Bandaidinc.org, and then the tab is Casey's Cruisers. So look at the tab for the wheelchair program. And if you scroll down to the bottom of it, there's the application. You can also go on the Shade Out DM website, and there is a link called Helpful Tips. And even if your dog doesn't have DM, we have all the cart companies and you know, lifts and slings and boots, and I mean, there's all kind of links on there. I probably should have given that to you. Sorry.
No, that's okay. We encourage you, if you're watching or you're listening, go to our YouTube channel or go to pretty much any platform where they stream podcasts, and we actually did the episode with Tauni a few weeks ago, and we have some resources there. There are some links there that you can look to find about Casey's Cruiser, but you can go to Shade Out DM.
Yes.
And there's also the hashtag Shade Out DM Facebook group as well.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information.
Yeah.
But as far as the links go, it's, you know, if you can afford to buy your own wheelchair, do it. You won't feel obligated to like worry if it gets broken or anything. But on that note, I mean, with Casey's Cruisers, if something gets broken, the way our program works is we ask that you do a $50 deposit that you get back when you return the cart with all the pieces. And then you pay then you pay the shipping both ways, which is typically for a Corgi car, it's usually about $50, you know? One way. But if it's a larger dog, it can be usually about $50 to $70, sometimes a little bit more depending on where you are. And if I'm sending a rear cart or a quad cart, or, you know, the weight, of course. But that's it. I mean, we really are not in this to make money. People, Bobby with Corgis, they were so amazing for me and such a relief that we just wanted to make this available to other people and other pups, all breeds. And basically, when Casey passed away, I said to Bandit's Bandaid, I said, hey, what do you want me to do with the cart? You bought it, and I'm so grateful for it. And they said, well, not really sure. And turned out they had bought several carts for other people, and everybody was kind of wondering the same thing. And so they said, if you want to head this up, then you can, it would be great, because we have bought a lot of boxer carts and a lot of, German Shepherd carts and stuff like that. So right now our fleet is almost 50 carts. Yeah. And all different sizes. So dachshunds, pugs, all the way up to, I think I sent a cart to a, what
That's
is
okay.
it?
A larger breed.
Big, giant. It was a big 130-pound dog. Yeah.
Oh my.
That's like a Beethoven
dog, Bernese Mountain Dog.
Oh, those are big babies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. So and I
go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I only have experience with a Corgi in a cart. But I do have other people that work closely with me that have the experience with the dogs in the big carts. And I recruit them all the time. I ask them, like, hey, can you connect with this mama and help her know how to do it with the big dog?
Right.
It's got to be tricky. I mean, Chrissy, I give a shout out to Chrissy, because she was so creative. She figured out how to use a rock climbing belt to clip him on to help support him while she changed his diaper and stuff.
That's pretty genius.
Yeah.
Really
Wow.
genius. Yeah. So it's not just me.
Wow.
It's a whole network of people that does this.
Wonderful.
So that's why the hashtag Shade Out DM group is wonderful, because you have a lot of these people that are a part of that. And
they're
I just
all willing to help each other. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention this, if you want a cart, 2 reasons. One, yes, of course, if you can purchase a cart, obviously, but it's more, I didn't want anybody to get scared if they might be facing this. Essentially, the short of it is that there are resources to help you kind of guide you through this process if you need it. And we're telling you where to go. It's the hashtag Shade Out DM group on Facebook, but you can also go to banditsbandaidinc.org and look at their website. And then there's also an application for carts, but you can find more information there, because there are links as well. So there are people to help you. And if the price does scare you, if you're having kind of sticker shock from vet bills and things like that, there's a whole community of people. These are volunteers.
Yes.
So we also recommend, if you can, please make a donation for any of these. You're helping a lot of needful pups and their needful parents. But please don't be scared. There are resources, and all of this research, and people like Tauni here who have gone through this and have sort of done the research and development for you and are sharing this information to kind of help guide. So I'm going to wrap us up here. Tauni, thank you so much for your time and your experience. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll have you on again. This has been great. Thank you.
Super. Thank you for the opportunity. And absolutely. Everybody that, anybody that needs a cart, I meant to add, you can use it for however long you need. So
that's wonderful.
There's no time limit.
And if we get more time with our babies, that's always preferable.
That's right.
Casey rode her wheels, and I strongly believe that she swam 2 to 3 times a week because she loved water, and that kept her buoyant and heart and lungs strong. But she rode her wheels for a month shy of 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Oh, gosh.
That's a lot of wagon rides.
Yeah, it is a lot of wagon rides. That's a lot of what's the word that I'm looking for? The casters. Is it casters? Yeah, I'm thinking of car parts. Yeah, you pack the bearings. That's a lot of miles on wheels.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of miles on wheels. Absolutely.
That's wonderful, though.
Yeah,
that's fabulous.
Well,
thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Bye.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this broadcast.
Yes.
Please like and subscribe. We're here for you every Thursday at Corgi Town, USA. Please go to banditsbandaid.org, make donations. You can find the application for Casey's Cruisers there, but you can also find out how you want to donate if you want to help.
That's right.
So, and feel free to reach out to us at Corgi Town USA. It's candy@corgitownusa.com. If you want to email us there, if you need resources and you couldn't find those links or you need help, we are glad to help. And we will see you next week.
That's right.
Candy, Kat, Chuckles, Digby, Wiggin, and the whole Corgi committee hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Bye.